All right. Hey there, everyone. My name is Taylor Bainter, and I'm one of the people on this project. In this video, I'm really excited to just kind of dive into Alter Math and explore what it is and how it can support your math instruction. So, our main objectives for today are to introduce and showcase Alter Math. I'll kind of walk you through what the tool is, how it works, what makes it a valuable resource for actually teaching mathematics. Hopefully you'll have a chance to pause and play with Alter Math as you're watching this video. You'll be able to kind of explore its features, figure out how it can help engage your students a little bit more than maybe some traditional problem work. And lastly, as you're watching this video, we really want to know what your impressions are. So what are your initial thoughts? What are your reactions? And please feel free to send any of those questions to the team. So to do that, I'll begin with a brief little introduction to set the stage. Um, then we'll kind of talk about using Alter Math in your instruction. So there are a bunch of different ways that teachers have implemented it in their teaching, starting with like a gradual release or just focusing on whole groups. So I'll kind of try to spark your brainstorming with some of these ideas. So throughout this video, please feel free to write down any questions that you have or think about how you might be able to use it in your own classroom. So, as we kind of explore this feature, I just really want to take a second and highlight how usage and feedback is really, really important for development. So how your students use AlterMath really gives us some honest input that drives or that tells us how the tool is working in real time. So we can figure out what students find engaging, where they might struggle, what problems maybe aren't necessarily as appropriate as other problems to kind of overall just figure out what the team can improve. Um, we also are listening to teachers, so especially with that product and technology feedback, that's you after using it in your classroom. We're really interested in knowing what works, what doesn't, to kind of inform those future updates. And finally, we are always sharing your feedback with all stakeholders. So it helps us refine AlterMath, but it also helps us make sure that it meets those needs of students and teachers and administrators. So thanks for being a part of this process. And if you ever have any notes about usage and feedback, please let us know. So Alter Math, it's a large language model powered AI system. It simulates fictional students with realistic educational needs and then asks real students to tutor them. So to put that kind of in a nutshell, a lot of times you may be used to using AI in the sense of I'm going to ChatGPT and I'm asking it for information or I'm asking it to organize information. So the AI system that you're using that to actually organize the information and maybe even give you information in some cases. In this case, it flips that on its head. So the AI is posing as a fictional student that is asking your students in your classroom for help with a math problem. So they're asking your students to tutor them, like, hey, I'm stuck with this problem. You can tell in this example, I'm struggling to understand this math. Could you lend a hand? Then they give them the problem and they say, will you be able to help me solve this problem? So your students are learning by teaching. And so it kind of creates this paradigm shift. So instead of focusing on like creating AI situations to guide learning, um, there's actually a lot of potential and engagement that we're seeing with AI that motivates students to actually support someone's current learning. And that's all based in this idea of learning by teaching. So in math education, a lot of times maybe students will passively receive information, which creates disengagement, lack of ownership, some rote memorization. So this tool aims to make math learning a little bit more fun, a little bit more of a proactive learning experience instead of a reactive learning experience. It prioritizes the comprehension over the rote memorization. And again, doing that by learning by teaching. So it's a really effective strategy for students to really build their conceptual understanding, and it's supported by contrasting cases in these social psychological interventions. So we're hoping that this will create more engagement, more ownership, and a lack of dependence on memorization. So let's kind of dive into what it actually looks like. So now you can see that I've logged in through MathNation. For some districts, it's connected to a portal. For some districts, you're just logging straight into MathNation. And I'm here in the Florida sixth grade course. And so one key component of actually playing around with this is that you do need to impersonate a student in order to access the tool because the tool is built on the student side of things. So if I click on Unit 9, for example, and I look at lesson 1, so MathNation, if you're not familiar with it, these buttons at the top are the units, and these buttons on the side are the lessons. So if I look right now, I don't see anything, but then if I click on impersonate student, so let's impersonate this student. Then if I scroll, if I go to Unit 9 and go back to Lesson 1, now you can see this little icon. So this little icon is the Alter Math icon, and it lets you know that for that specific lesson, so there's a bunch of different lessons within the unit, makes sense. We have the Alter Math chatbot available. So it's not available for all units just yet. We do have a slide of the units that it's currently available for across different courses. So if you click on it, the first time you click on it, and actually every new time that you click on it, you will see a tutorial. So this tutorial is this little pop-up. It says, great to see you. Here you get to be the teacher to some awesome virtual students. Your new pals might get stuck sometimes, just like when you're figuring out a tough level in a video game. They need your super brain power to help them out. So it's kind of explaining to the student like you are helping out this fictional student. It highlights a couple of settings that they can change. So there's different levels that the students can choose for each problem. There's also different themes. Not all levels and all themes are available for every problem, but again, as our team expands, you will see more and more options. They kind of introduce you to the student. There's 5 different students that they will be meeting as they continue to work through this program. And so they say this is a place where you'll help the virtual student. There's no right or wrong answer. What matters is that you're really trying to help them understand how they can improve. So they always start with like, hey, I'm a little bit stuck. Can you help? They give the problem, again, ask, can you help? And then they start with that like comparison of here are my thoughts, which one can be fixed. So based on the problem, they're not asking your student like, what's the right answer? How do I get to the right answer? They're asking your students to actually look at strategies and try to understand what they're doing in the strategy and then which one can be fixed. So this is a much deeper level of cognitive effort than just like solving the problem. Some students may solve the problem in order to help them here. It's completely up to your students. So which one can be fixed? So they're going to choose which one can be fixed. So as the tutorial goes through, it'll choose one for me. So let's choose a random option. So they chose random option. And then what they're going to say is, how can this option can be fixed? How can this option be fixed? So this is where your students are actually going to type out their answers to it. So they can enter all of their instruction here. And so they're going to do that for me. And then what is going to happen is your students are going to get a little bit of a tip for instructional improvement. So here it's saying like you've identified an option that can be improved, which is great. However, your explanation is a little bit of a placeholder. Here's how you can enhance it. Explain that the whole number of games is quantifiable. So it kind of like talks your students through like how you can actually or how they can actually improve their answers. So they may ask a couple of follow-up questions down here to really dive into what the student knows about the topic. And so that's how the tool works. From your side of things, the next question we get asked is how can I as a teacher see what's going on? And that's where you can see this open dashboard button. So the open dashboard, when you have students going into this specific lesson and doing this specific AI chatbot, you'll be able to see their names, their average explanation score, average correctness score, if they haven't, or the number of problems that they've answered, maybe what kind of themes they have, and then something called a knowledge graph, which is new, which kind of shows you the main connections that come up as your students are explaining the problems. You can also see an average explanation score for the class, an average correctness score for the class, and then the average number of interactions for your class, or how many students have actually accessed this chatbot. So again, every time I pop up a new one, it'll kind of give me to the tutorial, but otherwise, this is the general setup of it each time for each lesson that it is available in. So now that you've kind of seen it in action, maybe take a second, pause, think about what did you notice as you saw that explanation, as you saw the tool. What are some of the things that you're wondering about? So if you want to pause this, write those down. I also want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the courses and units. So this is where students should currently be able to see AlterMath for sixth grade accelerated, seventh grade accelerated, and eighth grade. We may not have all the problems ready for all the units, but we are actively creating and vetting problems for these units. This pilot started originally the end of the school year, which is why you'll see a lot of the ending units, because we wanted to have the problem sets available for those units that teachers were actually going through. So I also want to share with you some of our teacher resources and supports that are available with AlterMath. So this website will share with you some tools that you can actually use to help guide your instruction. So this is what the website looks like. You can see the page flyer. You can see a little demo video. You can also see teacher PD materials, which is where we'll focus this. So the first thing you'll see is table of contents, a little bit about AlterMath itself, that little bit of an explanation that I gave at the beginning. You'll see a section that kind of outlines the educational framework and learning theory behind AlterMath. So it kind of dives a little bit deeper into why the tool supports specific learning outcomes and skill development in math. We also have some example lesson plans. There's a little 2-minute overview of AlterMath, some tools that can actually be helpful when you're doing this with your students. Shows you a little bit more about the tutorial, shows you how to resolve any technical issues. And then, yeah, there's some example lesson plans that we've created that kind of give you a little bit more depth about ways that teachers have used this in the past. There's some like exit tickets that you can use. There's a pre-survey that you can use just to see like if your students' engagement levels and beliefs about math have changed over time. It kind of breaks down the instructional flow of like how to use it within a lesson. What are some ways that you can do that? So we're trying to do this so that you can blend it a little bit easier with your instructional flow. And so together, these resources, we're just kind of like building them out to help you make it a tool that supports your student learning and also aligns with your instructional goals without you having to do a bunch of like extra things. So as you kind of explore these PD materials, think about how useful it can be for your own instruction and how you might use it in your own classroom. And that leads us to one of the last questions is how would you use a program now? How would you use it in the future? So a few times in trainings, we've heard teachers say like, my students don't have a lot of experience with like typing out what their explanations are or like just writing about math in general. And so one of the things that we suggest is maybe consider starting with some whole class discussion prompting. So you can use AlterMath, pull it up on your main screen for the class and actually go through a question as a class. So say like, hey, we're going to help this student. Here's their problem. Which answer do you think is correct or incorrect? And then pose that to the students. Give them time to think about which answer they can fix, how they might fix that answer, and really create this discussion that not only allows students to kind of get the hang of what the tool is asking them to do, but it also gives them an opportunity to kind of like talk through all of the different strategies that they can use to support those students, those fictional students. So it can kind of help those students think through the problem solving process. It kind of helps you to guide their initial understanding collectively before you just kind of like set them loose with the activity. Over time, if you wanted to do a gradual release method, so move from that whole class, we did it together today. Tomorrow, let's log in and pair up. So two students with one computer to kind of like talk through, give themselves a thought partner And then eventually, maybe the next day or the next week, you release it to that like individual practice. So that kind of helps students build confidence in their learning and their writing. Um, and then they can transition all the way to that independent work time. And that doesn't have to be all in one lesson, right? Like one of the ways that you could use this is just kind of like one question after your main lesson before they transition to those like practice problems, or use it as a warm up or a review tool at the beginning of the lesson and just have students go through one, talk to a partner about it, or they can do this completely individually. So break it up however it best works for your instruction. And so we're hoping that this use can kind of help you scaffold that learning, engage students in meaningful discussions, and support deeper, more individualized math practice. So if you have any questions, all of our contact information will be available wherever you received this video at. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your day.